Neto to Arsenal is moving closer as reports confirm, guarantee, and state that Arsenal have been monitoring Pedro Neto for some time. And as of January, they could be making their, what is perceived by many to be their long-awaited move for one of the most exciting and so far this season prolific wide players, wingers, inside forwards. There's always a different description for them these days, depending on how old you are, really, in the league in Pedro Neto. Suffered multiple injuries in recent years that really held this young man back. In my view, stopped him from making a move to, with all due respect to Wolves, a bigger team, a more potent team, a more decorated club. But as of January, this long-awaited move for him could seriously transpire. Now, before we go any further, please hit like buttons, subscribe, and as I ask every day, get the bell notifications turned on. Make sure push notifications are on your phone. You want to ensure you don't miss any of our content, whether live or uploaded. So get that done now. And of course, check us out on TikTok. Scan that QR code on the screen to get that done. Now, this report here says Arsenal will maintain their interest in Wolves forward Pedro Neto and could make the move as early as January. Fabrizio Romano has also confirmed this by saying they're monitoring him, plus actually they keep monitoring. They're also monitoring Douglas Luiz of Aston Villa, who has always been appreciated by Arsenal. Now, we know he signed a new deal not long after the failed move to Arsenal beginning of last season. So just over a year ago, he signed a new deal. But Arsenal are moving a little differently at the moment in the market. Around, not quite this time last year, but they've been quite open and quite forward about their transfer dealings in recent times. Gabriel Jesus, Declan Rice, to name two, were almost like the worst kept secrets in football. But Arsenal led the race and they won that race from very early on. And for both players, they beat off top and difficult competition to land said individuals. Remember, Spurs tried to sign Gabriel Jesus. As an example, Chelsea got involved in him. We know Man City got involved in Declan Rice. But due to some FFP problems, and when I say problems, it just means they've spent £750 million and they are close to their limit of spending. Arsenal have got to be a little more coy, a little bit less aggressive publicly, and kind of work on these potential deals for January in a smarter way. Loans with options to buy, and of course, maybe selling a player or two. But if they are too far along publicly anyway, or they're too open about these moves, and suddenly they want to sell, I'm going to use an example, they want to sell Reece Nelson, they want to sell Smith Rowe to raise capital for one of these deals. If it's too public that they've got FFP issues, too public that they're really close to getting Neto, people will pay them less to buy the players leaving, potentially, because, of course, I know there's an element of desperation. So don't expect to see these stories be as open or feeling as close, maybe, as the press made the Declan Rice deal sign from kind of February until the end of the last campaign. But I kid you not, the stories are frequent, they are consistent, and Pedro Neto to Arsenal is moving ever closer. Give us your views and give us your opinions below. Now, I want to move on to Chelsea because there's two interesting stories surrounding Chelsea today. The first one, Maatsen. It's here, Man City and West Ham are expected to try and sign the 21-year-old if he does not sign a new deal. Now, a lot of Chelsea fans tell me this kid is a star in the making. This kid is part of the future of Chelsea. But we know they accepted a big bid for him in the summer, which leads you to believe he cannot be cock of the walk. He cannot be the man that maybe Chelsea fans think that he is. And I say that because why would you accept £30-odd million right at the end of the window for a player that you believe is going to be a star in the making and a star for the future in that said position? Now there's a new deal up for grabs. And Ian Maatsen has to be very careful here. I can imagine there is an element of him that has a huge desire to make it at Chelsea. I understand it. I get it. It makes sense. But what he doesn't want to do is sign a new deal, barely play, hinder his development, and then find it harder to leave on a permanent deal, this is, because now with a new deal, he's being priced out of a move by Chelsea. That's what he needs to be mindful of. As much as he'll get put on a long-term contract and earn better money, he has to think carefully about his future. Where am I going to get game time? Who wants me the most? And where am I going to be developed in the right way? Now, we know Chelsea can develop him, but the fact they accepted a bid in the summer, it's one of those moments for Chelsea fans to not think about this emotionally, but to think about it in reality. Should you cash in on him sooner rather than later, especially if he stalls on a new deal? Now, also with Chelsea, there's an interesting report here from Alex Crook that Gallagher is open to signing a new deal at Chelsea. He says Gallagher has been a mainstay in Pochettino's midfield and has even donned the captain's armband, and the Blues are now expected to open talks over a new deal. And what I find interesting about this is that Conor Gallagher, along with Kai Havertz and Mason Mount, last year was part of that trifecta of problems. The three main players who were ridiculed, attacked, condemned, and essentially 90% of Chelsea fans online I saw say they have got to leave my football club. We all saw it. We all witnessed it. And I think he has been decent in recent weeks. He's been given that armband, and he definitely appears to be a player that Poch trusts. That Poch, it isn't just playing him out of necessity. The man has made him a captain. That's different from, I've got 5 or 6 injuries, I'm going to play someone I don't really fancy. We've seen that happen at all clubs many times over the years, but you never see him get made captain. So is this another one of those moments where Chelsea fans have got to stop being emotional and thinking about what they want and accept the reality that Conor Gallagher looks like someone that Chelsea and their new manager, Mauricio Pochettino, is going to invest in? He's going to get a new deal. He's going to stay. He could even become the captain of this football club. I just really want to engage Chelsea fan opinion on this, even before I express one, because I'm in two minds about it. Part of me thinks you've got to trust managers. You've got to trust what they're seeing. We have seen, if you just think about how good Dele Alli was under Poch, and then since then how he's fallen off. Sometimes a manager can make again, if you just saw Dele Alli now, you'd say average. But we've seen Conor Gallagher at Crystal Palace look good, and then under new managers and at Chelsea look awful. Maybe Poch thinks he can get him back to those Crystal Palace levels, which, by the way, had everybody in the league buzzing about this prospect. So let's be fair. But Chelsea fans, how do you feel about it? Let me know. Now on to Manchester. This here from the Football Insider, they claim that Man United are targeting a move for the defender Marc Guehi. Of course, we mentioned Palace and Conor Gallagher, another Chelsea-Palace connection here. Of course, he's a Crystal Palace player, but comes from Chelsea's academy. He says, who has been linked with a number of Premier League clubs. And Man United is certainly in the market for another centre-back. And I really like Marc Guehi. I think there's a player in there. Of course, defending at a club like Man United or a Chelsea or an Arsenal is different from Palace. You typically play with a higher line. Defenders are exposed far more to one-on-one defending from transitional attacks or counter-attacks if you're old like me. And they really do push, it really does push your defending capabilities to the limit. And an attribute that is very rarely focused on when it comes to defenders is concentration, because you may go through large periods of the game where you're not having to defend intensely. Can you then switch it on when it's needed, as opposed to a team that's consistently being attacked and you're always in that zone, as it were? So I think the link to Marc Guehi is one that Man United fans can be somewhat excited about. We know that the ownership at Man United is changing. We know there is new investment coming in. It remains to be seen whether any of that investment will play down, whether it pays down any of the current debt owed to the banks, and more importantly, the debt owed to clubs in terms of the amortization payments that we are making on previous signings. If some of that can be used to pay that off, of course, it would fix Man United's FFP issues, which would then lead to them being able to sign players in the January window. Centre-backs are definitely needed, without a doubt. And we need centre-backs that are capable on the ball. We also need centre-backs that do have a good amount of power and strength, athleticism, speed, acceleration. We do lack in that area somewhat. And Marc Guehi seems to be a player that United really fancy in this regard. But as ever, United fans watching, give me your views, give me your opinions on this. I want to understand what you think and feel about this potential deal. But as ever, hit like button, subscribe, leave your comments below. Until next time, my people, take care, goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you all again soon.